of line.
Yeah, when Mourinho was banned that time, was you there then?
Mm.
It was like the news weren't even about the game. It was all about, well, where's
Because
Jose?
they're trying to spot him in the crowd, weren't they?
Mad, isn't it?
But yeah, they're allowed in the crowd there. I'm not allowed in the venue.
Yeah.
How mad's that?
What was he like to work with, Jose?
Brilliant.
Was
I mean,
it?
it was hard work. I mean, brilliant. But they're all, you know what? Coaches are all hard work. So you might as well have one that's successful.
That's something that might be worth talking about, actually. Like, do people go, oh, the manager wanted this? Surely a manager would want 400 players if possible. It's your job to sort of like roll that
make
back.
it realistic.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Do you know who's going to do the laundry thing?
Of course not.
You can't be seen to be saying endorsing that. Thank you. Welcome to this episode of Rio Presents. Listen, this is me, obviously Rio Ferdinand, and I've got two really, really, really impressive guys either side of me for different reasons. Got Ste, Man United nut,
All right.
lunatic, lost a bit of weight straight away when he walked in, I knew. And we've got my old CEO at Manchester United, and he was a CEO at Chelsea, Mr. Peter Kenyon's back.
Morning,
and do you know what? Morning, guys. But before we get into it, I've got to let Ste have his moment, because I spoke to Ste, and as soon as he saw Peter Kenyon on one of the shows, he texted me and said, listen, I'd love to get into that about Cristiano, Ronaldinho, Rivalries. That could have been our front three. Here's the floor.
Yeah, I mean, straight off the bat,
No pressure.
obviously, negotiations, we were reported as
Yeah.
negotiations breaking down. So Alex actually had quite a lot to say about the negotiations breaking down with Ronaldinho.
Yeah.
What actually happened?
What actually happened was we did chase him hard. We did look at him hard.
So before you get into that, can I just say what the duty rumour is about this? This is what United fans have spun for 20 years. And you tell me how close to reality this is.
Okay.
The duty rumour is that you agreed a fee over the phone with Paris, got to Paris with a different figure in your briefcase.
Absolutely wrong. So let's kill the myth.
That's the rumour.
Okay. No, maybe a rumour, but it's not true. So, look, this was the same as any other transfer. Alex would be involved in it. Critical decisions: does he want him? Why he wants him? Where he would play? Who he would replace? Etc. 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 Right. So Alex was involved all the way through. Normally, in these cases, you're dealing with the player and his agent. Here, we're dealing with the player and his several agents and about 20 other people in the room. Yes, he's a great player. Yes, he could play. But suddenly we're into a whole different thing, really our first Brazilian. Injecting that sort of culture around training, not normally on time, which is a massive thing.
Yeah, the
in
Brazilian
terms
training culture's
it's different.
Yeah,
The
different.
Brazilian health culture, different. Fantastic players. But there was all sorts of other things that started to get, introduced into this. And he was clearly coming with a lot of people. And Rio, what United was like at that point. I mean, it was an institution. I mean, nobody got treated differently than the rest.
Because we signed loads of players over them periods of times, and loads of players wanted to come in. And
This is summer 2003, and it just said,
yeah,
Bex has just left.
yeah, and there's loads of players coming into the Premier League, and you're hearing like, oh, he's got his own physio, he's got his own like this, that, and it's like at our club that was never happening.
Correct.
You couldn't do that.
Correct. So this started to become a bigger issue actually than the money, and we sort of got an agreement with the club. We could have got an agreement with the player, but it was all starting to get to the edges of,
What there was like entourage and other external demands.
Yeah, and we came back and sort of said, look, on balance, don't think this is gonna. I mean, we just, as you just mentioned, David had sort of moved on, and part of that move on was around the environment, not just playing. And again, I think that becomes today. That's a bigger issue, I believe, than it was then.
The noise that a player brings to the club.
For
Bex
sure.
was obviously all the stuff that was going on in media and stuff. Interest around him was crazy, and the manager I don't think was liking that. So then to bring someone else who's going to be
Bigger.
doing that and doing more of that,
And
would have
might
been-
not have actually trained as hard.
100% wouldn't have done. right? It's
But he
not
would
Give
even.
the benefit of the doubt.
but he'd
Might have tasted a bit of that Salford rain and gone, bit of graft here. You know?
But he would have produced some moments. Wow.
Oh,
Imagine Ronaldinho in that red kit, man.
Imagine Ronaldinho. What a forward free that could have been, though.
Oh, mate.
and you've got Rude as well.
Yeah, exactly.
Let's not forget that.
He'd have been fuming because he'd have been making runs in and out of the box
Yeah.
as Ronaldinho's doing 900 step overs on the left and you got
Yeah.
Cristiano doing 900 on the right.
He would have had a fight with both of them in training most days.
I mean, to be fair, it didn't work out bad, did it?
Yeah.
In any case.
It was all right. I think, but Ronaldinho's just one of those like all-time players.
Nostalgia,
that you
innit?
just think, yeah, what he would have done at Old Trafford and what he would have done for the Premier League would have been absolutely sensational.
The only thing I would have been disappointed if he had signed for us and he hadn't have been able to get in that kit with the laces and the collar. That would have Ronaldinho's hair and the laces would have been a madness, wouldn't it? Do you know what I mean? Could you envision that?
Can you imagine him in the 2007, Joe, the gold V-neck one, the one that we won stuff in?
Oh.
Can you imagine him in that? Imagine him in that Roma game, just doing a madness. Come on, man.
Right, let's move on, guys. I think this is the bit of today that I was really looking forward to with Steve being here as a budding young manager in the grassroots game, and somebody who's obviously been around some of the best managers that we've seen. Steve, I've got to get your thoughts on how you think Man United have started this season, because I think there was a meeting last week with the hierarchy of the club down in London. Reportedly, allegedly discussing the current manager, Erik ten Hag. What's your thoughts on the start of the season and then what happened?
I thought we'd improved in a few areas. We weren't conceding 25 shots a game.
We spoke about this on the phone, didn't we? Yeah.
I thought we'd been building out from the back nice. Like, people talk about, I'm not seeing a style of play, I'm not seeing a style of play. I was. But it's a results business. And I think up to the Liverpool game, we looked better without getting the results that we deserved. Since the Liverpool game, we've been awful. Like, it hasn't continued on that trajectory of we look like we know what we're doing building out. We've been a bit unlucky. We've not been unlucky. We've just been poor. And I think we spoke about it in the summer. Like, I don't know where our goals come from. That's why I was like, I don't know where Ivan Toney fits in, but I'm kind of like on board if we want to get Ivan. I have no idea where he plays once everyone's fit, but like I think he'll bring goals. Because you're asking for Ahmad to basically be a starter now when he hasn't delivered that before.
Shipped out on loan.
Yeah. You're asking for Garnacho to just suddenly be a 15, 20 goal winger. You're hoping Marcus has one of his 1 in 5 that he's had where he can deliver 30 goals. And Anthony to turn up and be a footballer. So I don't know. That's our 4 wingers, right? We lost goals and assist and quality with Sancho. We lost goals with Greenwood. And under the whole Ten Hag thing, we obviously lost Cristiano Ronaldo as well. So there's a lot of goals that have gone that haven't come in and been replaced. I think the defence looks really good. Aside from the shipping of the 3 goals, I think like personnel-wise, the defence looks pretty good. I'm happy with the keeper. The midfield, we haven't quite found the right pattern for it yet, but I think the pieces of the puzzle are there. We just got to figure out how they fit together. But the attack is dysfunctional, and I worry that we're going to score goals. And you don't score goals, you better be flawless at the back, and even then you're only going to pick draws up if you're not scoring. So it's been bad. That week of the 20 game, you're just kind of scratching your head going, it's going to be a long season, this. I thought if Ten Hag had lost Porto and Villa, he was definitely gone. And I thought if he won both, he'd probably stick around till at least Christmas.
Do you think it should
2
be
draws,
like
I
that,
don't know
though?
what that means,
Do you
though.
think it should
Steve,
be on just result? Like, one result means that he should stay. Shouldn't it be the bigger picture?
Yeah, it should.
I think
that's been created. I mean, I think that's unfortunately where he's at,
Yeah, it should
which
be
is the
big
worst place
picture.
to be, right? So, look, I think coaching's the hardest job in the world.
Yeah, because you're in business now.
No, but from that point of view, because he is the face of the club in most clubs, yeah, and he has to manage a lot of different aspects of a team, right? Not everybody's equal. He's got to tell people. He's got to decide who plays, who doesn't play every week. He's under the cosh because of results. Fans like him, but if he loses 6 games, they don't like him as much as they did, right? Huge pressure, media.
Do you think United get treated differently by the media?
I think they should, because they're a big club, right?
Yes.
They're a world club. And I think we need to get back to people believing that United's a world beater, right? So belief is what's missing. DNA is what's missing. We need people who are not just coming there because they're being paid more money. That never happened, right? We started this by talking about a pretty good footballer that we didn't get. We didn't get him not because we couldn't afford him. We got him because we chose not to because of the impact on the team. That's a big team decision. That's a big club decision.
Well, that's sort of like we was talking on our podcast on Paddock last week about how do you change a culture, and I said, I'm not sure you can. I think you have to sign a culture.
You build a culture, right? So if you look at the class of '92. That came from a culture that was starting to be built. People we brought in after that added to that, but there was a core element. We bought Rio, we had, British record, right? But we bought him not just for one league season. We bought him as an investment for the rest because we believed, he was a good footballer, right? And we were prepared to sort of break the bank for him. But we believed he would add to that culture and build that culture. And that's what this is about. So this game at the top level is about building the best team right the way through the organisation. Which means,
is what we've just started to do. And it's going to take a minute.
And that's what Jim will do, right? But I don't think it's about the next 6 games. And it's certainly not about, it's about the next few seasons. Because it takes a long time, right? Do
you think there's something else at play with this as well? Do you think in the summer, Ineos did a relatively public search for a new manager, it looked like. And the decision that they came to was Ten Hag was the best man for the job. Now, if 7 or 8 games into the season, they go back on that, does that not weaken their position?
Okay, so I don't think they did.
Okay.
I don't think they did decide that Ten Hag. I think if they'd have got somebody else... If they've done that, they've not publicised it that way. It felt as though he was on the hook. They didn't find the right person, therefore he's given the job. Again, that's not... If he's not right, move him on. You've still got to find the right one, right? But I think the guy is living under incredible, unnecessary stress, right? Because at the end of the day, you've got to make these things work, right? Rio joined us. Ferguson still had to do a lot of work with the team and Rio to make it work. It just doesn't happen, does it?
No. The magnitude of the club you don't ever know till you walk in the door. I've spoken to some of the members of the Ineos team that have gone into the club now, and they were going, I didn't realise it was this big. Delighted.
You say that to players all the time.
Yeah, they're delighted with it. It's excited them even more, the guys at Ineos. But they didn't even know it was the way it is, how big it is around the world. Not just locally, around the world. So when you go in there as a player, there's so much to consider when you walk in there. But the biggest thing you need is the infrastructure of the club to help you through that.
Correct.
And I think if that doesn't seem like it's been there, so players are coming in there, seeing how big it is and going, wow, on the back foot from the first go, but then who's there to support and push him forward?
So we're not protecting our players.
Yeah, I just don't think they know. Yeah, and I think that you need it. I came into a really good, well-run environment who had a culture there. Like Peter said, they're still searching for that culture. Culture's kind of been it's been ripped out of the club almost over the last few years. They've got to try and bring that back, and I think that's where Ineos come. Looking at that meeting that they had last week, you've obviously been in those moments.
Yeah.
What are the different factors that you would analyse when reviewing a manager's performance? What's the bigger picture? What does that mean?
Well, you don't publicise it. Right? So, the best meetings happen behind closed doors because you're just fueling the fire. I don't want a gang of media people camped outside. Is he going? Is he not going?
Which is what we got.
That's just awful.
How does that happen?
Nobody would want to live under that.
How does that happen? Is someone in there?
We don't hear about other clubs' meetings because it's not relevant, is it?
Is someone telling people?
Well,
that?
To some degree, we're back to it. That's how big Manchester United is. Don't forget, that would have been bounced around the world, not just in London, not just in Manchester, not just in England. That would have been US.
New York Times.
Right? That's not the environment you want to operate in for anybody. So if you want to talk about the manager and how is he doing, Do it behind closed doors. Do it at the training ground. Do it as part of the thing. Let's not get... But I think that's... to some degree, that's the size of the club. The other thing is, guys, we just got to be smarter at that.
What happens in those meetings? We see them all going into that room. You've been there. Have you had to kind of relieve a manager of his duties in your time?
Yeah, sure. But even at United, and come back to certain things, you review after every game. I used to speak to Alex, I'd speak to Jose, I'd speak to the other managers. It's like, what's going on? You just don't start at the end of the season and it's a clear, easy path. It's moving all the time, and the coach is critical to that. So if he's going out there thinking, "Is my job on the line this season?" It's not a great place to be, right?
That pressure must be unexplainable.
It's ridiculous. So we've gone through. Arteta would have been fired had you applied that to it. So there was a longer term plan. There was a belief in him. Things don't always go right, but you see it through. I mean, before Alex went on his run, he'd been there several years, and it was that infamous FA Cup.
In the ground, it was raw. So.
Yeah, right. So I think it's got to be. There's a bigger picture here, which is where we're going, how we're going to do it, and who do we need to do it with. And a key component of that is your coach.
So how did you sack a manager then? How did you go about that?
So the benefit of working with Alex for 8-9 years is what good looks like. Right?
I'm not sure you do. I think you know what the best looks like.
Yeah.
Well, okay.
Everyone fails in that comparison.
I mean, seriously. So how things are done. You know what brings results. You know.
Was it Ranieri that you got rid of?
Yeah. So when I went in to look at Chelsea, there wasn't a training ground. They used the university training ground. You couldn't train on a Thursday because they used it. This was 2003, 2004 in the Premier League, right? And Ranieri was, he was a good coach, right? He's a good coach.
You finished in Europe that year as well, didn't you?
Yeah, we had a tough year, and that was part.
Did we win?
But what I saw there, was we had good players, we had a coach, but what he lacked was something that Alex had in abundance, which was winning. And pretty early on in that tenure, we sat down and said, "Look, we've got to look at
who's the we in that?"
That was Roman and I, and that was about saying we need a coach here that will get us into winning mode, because we hadn't won, right? 50 years without winning Premier League, good players. But I look at John Terry, I look at Frank Lampard, I looked at Peter Cech. These were all players we got, but they'd never won anything, right? And the difference between a player who's won something and a player who's a great player is black and white. So what I saw in Ranieri was a good coach, but somebody who'd never really experienced winning. And then we went on a stupid run where we got to the semi-final of the Champions League. We went on to the runners-up in Premier League. And every week, month, it was like, what do we do at the end of the season? And we said,
had you decided early, by the way? Okay.
Yeah, didn't know who. So we spent a lot of time looking at who that was.
What were the options? Because obviously Jose got it. Was that, how much of that was on the Champions League win that you got?
That put him in the frame.
Yeah.
Because he was outperforming. Actually, he was outperforming. And had Chelsea won in the semi-final against Monaco, would have played them in the final, which would have been ironic. So he was outperforming. He clearly got a different style, got good credentials in terms of where he's been and how he got to his job. And then when we met him, he was the first one, I think, of that next generation.
Who else was in the frame then? Because I want to know how you evaluated and analysed them and put them head to head against each other. Come on, man! It's 21 years ago. No,
all right. Okay. No, Carlo's there.
Okay.
I think that was a good benchmark. So you've always got to get 2 or 3 around, because they could have got another job.
They've always got options.
They've always got options. The best ones have always got options. So when we actually spent time and met with Jose, again, he got that same hunger. He got that same desire. His attention to detail was phenomenal.
Did he present to you? Did he?
Oh, he knew more about our team than
Wow.
Ranieri did.
That's unbelievable, that, isn't it?
And that was the nature of him.
So what's he coming in and presenting? This is my team. These are my transfers. This is how we'll play.
He knew how he would play. He knew the strength of the players within. He knew he had a real crystal as to we're short there in that position. Not that player's a bad player. I'd keep him, but he's not that.
The level.
So he analysed that better than anybody else we'd seen. And again, you know, these guys all have different styles.
Yeah, I can't imagine Carlo coming and doing that.
Yeah.
No, Carlo's much more. I mean, Carlo's well, you look at his results. he puts everybody into shadows, doesn't he?
I can't even imagine him presenting. Imagine him
but
going.
he's got a very different style.
I think he just comes in and gives the eyebrow.
Yeah.
And just says, I am what I am.
Stares you out and goes, "Oh yes."
Yeah.
He's an amazing
trophy.
amazing character.
Yeah.
Amazing character. One of the best.
But you know, when the other factors that you consider, like when it comes to giving a manager more time, I think Erik ten Hag's in that position where we've seen the Ineos board give him more time. One at the end of the season, people allegedly are saying they've given him more time after the meeting last week. What do you have to consider as a club in those moments?
Well, you know, look, this is a pressurised world we live in. The club lives and dies on results, right? So you're looking for other things other than results. I mean, ultimately, it's not acceptable that Man United finishes 10th or whatever. That's not what this club's all about. It's not acceptable Chelsea is doing that, right? But you've got to recognise that you're not going to put this thing right. Now, the fans themselves, right, critically important to the club and to the team and all the rest of it. But you've got to build them belief. You've got to tell them what this journey is. And being wishy-washy about whether the club's going to be here in 3 games' time if he loses, that undermines everything. You know, we talk about, you know, what does that do to the team, Rio? If you were in a team, you never thought that Ferguson was ever going to be anything but be there, would you?
Yeah, I think any kind of... It's probably better to align it to England because there was more chance of the manager not being there.
So was there talk in England?
Yeah.
You lose, he's gone.
Yeah, just around like when it's coming to the end of someone like Kevin Keegan or Capello or Steve McLaren, like Sven-Göran Eriksson, it does dismantle things a bit. It gives there's a nervous edge around things because then you get the guys that are there's guys in the team that are always going to play when you're fit. There's guys in there that are relying on this manager likes me, but I don't know if the next one will. Yep. Then there's ones who are sitting there going, when a new manager, this is my time now. So everybody's at different places. To win, you've got to have everybody in the same line and the same way and going there, that way, like that, going forward. When it's like there's a little bit of nervousness around the managers staying or going, everybody have their own motives then, and it becomes a little bit like just it's me against everybody. I've just got to make sure I'm all right, and you can't have that to win or be successful. So that's the element I worry about with the Man United team at the moment is that there's so many different dynamics going on behind the scenes, whether this manager stays or goes, that affects players individually. It's going to be difficult to get results. It's difficult to build consistency. Do you know what I mean? It's difficult for the manager to implement things because some players are going to be sitting there going, you ain't even going to be here in a couple of weeks, the way things are going.
I bet that gets said.
So why am I tuning in? So why am I going to take all this information?
That's real. You know,
players don't get sacked.
Players don't get sacked, right?
Coaches
do.
You're thinking you're never going to have to replace Sir Alex. Was you not there while
you
was actually trying to replace Sir Alex? So 2002, Sir Alex is allegedly retiring for about 6 or 7 months until he has a change of heart and flips it round.
That wasn't well trailed. That was him.
Is this the what he actually retired or 2002?
No, when he was going to 2002, right? Yeah. So that hadn't been trailed anywhere. I mean,
we thought he was trying to get a new deal.
I think he did. Can't remember that far back. I'm sure he did. But no, there was generally stuff going on, and at that point he thought that's what he wanted to do, right?
What's the panic in your mind when you get that phone call?
It wasn't panic. It was like, wow. And we hadn't done any work on it, right? To the point we've just been talking about, because you should be looking at this. But he was part of the institution. He was young. I mean, you know, he's part of his. Well, I'm reaching 60 now and thinking about it. Want to spend more time, all that stuff. But actually, all they lived for was football, right? Which all the top guys do anyway. I mean, again, it's 24/7. So, but if I look at that period, but I think it dipped. It did dip because you're thinking that, but you're not acting that. And over that period, it was a tough. I could see that things were just not quite what they were, right? Because it was just coming off a bit, and somebody from outside wouldn't see that. So we had to get on looking. So we started looking, right, as opposed to being in a process of looking.
Who were the names you were looking at then?
Sven was the rumoured one, wasn't he?
Sven was one of them. I think what we'd done prior to that, which would helped a lot, was we'd brought in good number twos. That had moved the training on, moved the processes on. So we got a good structure in the club. So we weren't worried about that. But again, the great thing I think we did there is there was rumours, but nobody really knew, and we weren't undermining the current coach whilst he was there. And just before we'd appointed someone else, he changed his mind. So we finished up okay.
Was Arsene Wenger one of the ones in consideration?
There was some discussions going on at that point.
How mad's that?
Nuts.
So
He's talking about the next manager. Sven-Göran in his book said that he'd actually signed a contract.
We hadn't.
He'd signed it, but you hadn't.
Yeah, we hadn't.
Wow. So he said at one point he was the United manager in his mind.
He was, I think he was very, very close, and then it all changed, and United, that was great for United because it went on to, continue.
But it still took him a few years. Like people talk about, Ten Hag signed 13 players. He should have his team playing his own way now. Fergie been there 20 years, but like after that title you won in 2003, we went on a few years of not quite, mad teams with like Kleberson and Jemba in there.
Team was in transition then. He made a couple of signings that didn't work out, but also there was a few players. Roy going, obviously Beck's going. Who else was it? Giggsy and Scholesy were getting older. Do you know what I mean? And then he's bringing players like myself, Wayne, Michael Carrick eventually came in after that. But like, there was a time where, as I said, I remember I had a conversation with Carlos Queiroz.
Yep.
And he said to me, the manager will build this team. We're building a team. You, Scholesy, Wazza, just be patient. And I was like, okay. And the manager would reinforce that as well, talking to him. And the fact that Jose had come in at Chelsea as well raised the bar to another level that we had to react to. It took us 2 years because they started off so quick in the league, and he had them firing on all cylinders immediately.
Well, his first year, we won the league.
Yeah,
first time in 50 years. So he did league back to back and FA Cup.
Yeah,
and that I mean, Alex didn't speak to me during that period, but anyway, that's a different story. Yeah, I mean, that's what I'm saying. I mean, these things are.
But that's that competitive energy and nature that you need. Jose would have had it, and he'd been sitting there with Jose for them 2 years going, yes, we're doing it. We're giving Man United a bit of their own medicine. So Alex, who was you was his CEO for how many years, he's going, I'm not talking to him, wouldn't pick up the phone to him. They're the competitive energies and the subplots that are going on behind the scenes that's what makes football. That's what you love. That's what you want. You wouldn't have liked that at the time, but you respect it, I'm sure.
Yeah, for sure. And you understand why it is, because it's win. It's a winning culture, and you've no time to spend time on people who are not with you, right? I mean, it's brutal. It is brutal. And then if you look at, I mean, the great things he did, as I say, he was the best man manager I've ever come across. Right? I've been on.
Explain that a bit. Like, in what sense?
You'd lose a game on Saturday, right? A game you shouldn't have lost, right? In his mind, you shouldn't have lost it.
That's every game.
You've been there. You've been on the coach. You've been on the plane. He takes you down to the depths, right? So public, nothing to do with the boys. Privately, right? And all the best coaches like this, it's your fault, right? You didn't do this, you didn't do that, whatever. So the team's down here. He will pick a point in that journey home or training the next day where he can't have you there. He's got to have you ready for the game on Tuesday. massive game against Milan or somebody, and he'll change it like that, right? And he'll take you from, okay, you're punished enough now for the result you didn't get on Saturday or
How's he doing
Sunday.
that? Is that just?
That's just
He just changes his
it-
mood, starts whistling.
things he'd do. It's whistle.
Yeah, his mood dictated
The
the
mood
environment,
of
the mood of the
absolutely.
camp. So if he came in the canteen, which was a massive space,
Yep.
where you could seat 50 to 70 people,
Yep.
right? And there's a kitchen there. If he walked in and he had that face on, the whole place
Be
was
flat.
You don't want eye contact. No one wants eye contact at all because he was so cold. But then if he walked in or singing a song, one of the old Sinatra songs or something like that, everyone was like, "Oh, he's all right." Right, Gaff, like that. Do you know what I mean? It was just so different and dictated the way that the place ran and moved. It was just.
There's
But you see that you say, all right, Gaffer, right?
Yeah.
This is the sort of I'll call it the power. It's soft power, but you'd never call him Alex, would you?
No,
You'd
why?
never say, "Hey, Ferguson, what
Doesn't
are
he
you
say in
doing?"
one of his books, someone calls him Alex and he goes, "Did I go to school with you?"
I don't know.
like that.
Yeah.
I wouldn't.
You boss,
Yeah, boss. I just call him boss. Gaffer,
boss or gasser, right? Again, those environments. It's interesting. What do players? We talk about player power, right? And I think it has shifted. It has shifted significantly, but for different reasons. But what do you think players call Arteta today?
Yeah, I reckon Declan Rice calls him Mikel or Tets.
I mean, that's never.
It's gone. I reckon managers now might. I spoke to my boys. It's weird
That
you
would
say
never
that.
happen.
Never. My boys now, they call their, and it's not disrespect. It's just
No.
different way things are going in this time. My boys, they call their managers by their name or their nickname. Like it's like it's a player. There's no difference for the manager to the players like they used to be. Boss, Gaffer. So it would never be Alec. No, I just can't even think about. I can't even
Fergie.
imagine. No.
Fergie.
Hey, Fergie, yeah. I need to speak to you, but how come I'm not playing? No, it wouldn't happen.
And I'm sure that
The glare you'd get.
Josie don't operate like that either.
No. Imagine that.
I mean,
What was he called at Chelsea? Gaffer.
boss? Yeah.
boss.
I mean, it's just what it was.
I
And
met
these guys were like full internationals,
Yeah.
won things. I mean,
captains of countries
yeah.
are going, I could not call him by his government name. No chance. But no, it is mad. But I don't think that's not a slight on today's generation.
No,
it's
it's
just
not.
different.
No, it's not.
Do you know what I mean?
But it is different, and it is an environment that was created in order to win.
Well, listen, we're in the middle of international break now, and which always kind of throws up crazy discussions, a different kind of discussions. And what I want to talk about now is players playing too many games.
Mm-hmm.
We've seen Man City's Rodri be quite vocal about this a lot this season. Rafael Varane as well has been in the background doing a lot of work and talking to a lot of players and different parts of the ecosystem. And it'd be good to actually get a quote. This is what he said: "From my experience, between 40 and 50 is the amount of games in which a player can perform at the highest level. After that, you drop off because it is impossible to sustain a physical level." And the last 4 seasons at City, Rodri has played 72, 51, 69 and 58 games last season.
That's including Spain.
Including Spain as well, internationals, excluding friendlies. So I think he does have a point. And we spoke before we came in here, didn't we, Peter?
Yeah.
I think the biggest issue for football, not just the players, is too many games is going to mean that the level of quality will drop. Yeah. And then that's when I think there's an issue with fans watching the game, the players not being able to put out that quality, and also the people that are bringing the money, the media spend in the different forms. They want quality. It's not quantity, I don't think. It's the quality that they're going to want. And if that starts to drop, then you may see the money dropping out of the game or being taken out of the game in the long term. What do you think?
So, Rio, this is not a new problem, right? Which is interesting, right? It's been raised, and I think it brings on other issues we'll discuss in terms of player power later. But, 92, I spent the weekend with Pele, with Venables, who was England manager, and Van Gaal. And we were talking then about...
Not a bad threesome, that, is
No,
it?
it was a good weekend.
Wow.
Right, it was a good weekend.
Some football natter there, and all my days.
Yeah, it was pretty cool. And the discussion was all around...
Pele scored 3 goals that weekend.
It's all right. Is football going to get bigger? And if it's getting bigger, is it getting better? And the outcome from that was clearly it's going to get bigger. You know, we're going into a World Cup in US, so it's clearly going to get bigger. But the outcome, the general thought was, it's not going to get better. And I think that's where we are today. It's this balance all the time, because bigger means more money coming into the game. Yeah,
more injuries.
And then there's always been this conflict, as long as I've been involved, between club and country. So the whole thing has got to be looked at, not, and it's not about the players just complaining. I think it's about somebody's got to look at the game and say, where is this game going and how do we want it to go? Because it's the quality of the product that keeps people coming.
Well, do you think the product's good at the moment? Because I don't. I think we're in a weird time where athleticism and systems. We've just been talking about Ronaldinho.
Yeah.
There ain't a Ronaldinho in the game at the moment. There ain't no one that's getting you off your feet like that in the game. And there was dozens of those players.
Yeah, but I think this cycles, isn't it? I think this cycles. There's a way of things being done in the game which is very much about systems and structure. Pep Guardiola, just everything about his game is structure and systems that sometimes takes away a little bit of the individual element. But I think it will swing back round at some point, because I think somebody will come in with a new idea and everyone will go, wow, that looks different. Actually, I'll embrace that. And then other players in those positions like the 10s, etc., the Totties and people like that, and Baggios and that, they wouldn't probably be playing in today's game in the way it is at the moment, because athleticism is the main factors that they look for, and obviously playing within that structure. But I still think I go to games. I still love it, man. I don't go to games and not love it. I think watching a game sometimes now isn't as. I watched an old game on MUTV yesterday with my son, and I said to him, "Tell me what you see. What's different about today?" And he said to me, "This is just going back and forth. You attack, we attack, and it looks like players are just being told, go and work it out." Exactly what he said to me. That was his words, and I was like, "What's it like now?" He said, "Well, it's just really structured, Dad, and one team keeps the ball for a period of time, and then when the other team get it back, they'll have a little bit of time with it. But so one team has the ball for more, and it becomes a bit more kind of boring in that sense, Dad." And I do agree exactly with what he said there. But then you do still have a player pop up with a little moment, or a goal comes, or something happens. Just not as much, I don't think.
Do you think that the sort of the athleticism and the systems and the speed at which we see closing down, I think that's changed. And I think you're still going to have players that are as skillful as your Baggios and your Gazas and people like that. But I don't think they're getting the amount of time and space that they used to get. So they're forced to just be really, really simplistic with what they do. No one's, you didn't want to give Ronaldinho space anyway. He just took it. But I don't think that you're seeing that sort of player given the opportunity to play now. And I also think because teams are defending,
they're set up better.
Yeah, way deeper, way more organised. That whereas you might have found a Baggio with a little bit of space around a D. Do you think anyone finds space around the D to get on the turn and maybe drop a shoulder and beat someone?
Not really, but a lot of it is about like there's always a why to a pass. Why are you making that pass? Or why are you? Everything's about the why you're making that run now. Give it to someone who, like, you give it to a Ryan Giggs, and he's got 3 players around. Giggs is going to work his way out of that. It ain't like the system that's going to get him out of that. Whereas now the system's going to make the decision for a lot of the players.
And is the system needed because the defensive structure is better than it was?
Maybe.
And that's why we see that sort of.
But that's why
I think the whole coaching
has
has changed.
The coaching,
I think the coaches themselves have changed. I mean, probably the biggest change I saw, having worked with Alex, who was a fantastic coach. But you then get a Jose who was the first of that next generation of coaches. It was much more structured under Jose. His game, he had a game plan, which I'm not saying it was better but it was different. It was as much about stopping the opposition as what you did. But I think if you look at every coach now at every level, they're just more geared to analytics and data and game plan and all those things. That's the world we're living.
Yeah, he's very different. And I look at it and think to myself, I speak to a lot of ex-players and we talk about this because there's so much more detail, analysis, data. And we're like, I don't think I could survive today. My head used to frazzle with too many hand signals for corners.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? Let alone like how much different plays they've got during a game. It's almost like we've got a playbook like NFL or NBA now. We used to go on tour and go into like I think it was the Seattle Seahawks we went to one. Chicago
That's right,
Bears.
it was. I was there last week, actually, yeah.
So we went there, and we was in the change room where the players were, and I was sitting where the quarterback, I forget his name at the time, I was sat in his spot, and I was looking in his locker, and there's little bits and pieces, deodorant and aftershaves, and that was still hanging about, or whatever, tapes. And then a folder, about that thick, A4 folder.
Game plan.
Took it out. It's a playbook. He has to memorise the playbook. And I'm sitting there thinking, you ask Wazza, Anderson, Fletch, any of these guys, you ask us, any of us, to memorise a playbook, we're saying, right, we can't play football no more.
It's a sport of set plays, though, isn't it?
Yeah, it is. But what I'm saying, the ask is so... But the
football's gone more that way.
Football's
than
now
the
gone
way.
this way. They might not have the playbook, but they're downloading data into these players like never before. It's unreal.
Going back to Rodri, he talked about striking. He says, I think the players are close to striking. That's not like thinking about it. Being close is... That feels like something's already been discussed rather than maybe we should have a discussion. He says, I think that we are close to striking, and if it keeps it this way, there'll be a moment where we have no other option. I mean, did you ever think about striking?
No, I don't think we did. I think...
I don't think you had a structure for striking.
No.
Right?
No.
So that's really interesting because Rodri plays within the Premier League. So who's going to strike? The Premier League. Plays for Spain, so he's going to strike the national team. Again, the structure with players is pretty poor, if I'm being honest, that allows that to happen. I'm not saying there's not a lot of different players from different clubs or different countries that don't feel the same way, but I'm not sure there's a mechanism for that to happen.
If I had the time, I'd create a players' union. I know the PFA need to become more embedded into the players' kind of mindset. The PFA was there when I was there, and you lean on them if you needed help with a contract or if you had a problem at a club, you go to the PFA. I think the PFA have to do some more work, some real hard work, which they're doing, by the way, behind the scenes, but it just doesn't seem to penetrate like it needs to bring the community of players together for moments, for big moments.
The PFA doesn't, to a player that's coming in from Spain or Germany, it doesn't matter.
It doesn't resonate.
It doesn't resonate. They don't have the equivalents. They just say, well, what do you give me? I mean,
I think as the PFA, and I'm going to go and speak to the guys there, but the PFA, I think, need to get a few ambassadors that young players, this generation can relate to and go, oh, I get it. And what is the purpose of the PFA? And make all the players who are incoming and the players that are here understand that. Because you look at the NBA or NFL, NBA, they striked. The game stopped one weekend.
They've changed all sorts of rules.
Yeah, but you've got the players that are running that. Do you know what I mean? There's players that are current players and a couple of ex-players, but Chris Paul's one of the guys. But they have big guys in the game who have big impact and influence, not just LeBron. So there needs to be a couple of players that go in. And if the players want to strike about certain issues, it's like I'm really happy that he's actually coming out and saying this as well, by the way, because there are conversations going around behind the scenes with the players. Like I said, Varane's one of those guys behind who's very vocal about this. But this shouldn't be just about this. This should be the same for this forms of discrimination, like racism. Where's this energy when it's about racism? I don't hear no players talking about striking. Is there different levels of importance with these things? So we need to get to the crux of things like that. But you need a unified approach and a unified group of players to be together to have these conversations, because no players get around a table like this. They're at the clubs they do, but I'm talking do 10 clubs, different players, go out and have a meal and go, listen, we've got a few issues in the game. Like the games being played at the moment are a real big issue. If those guys got together and had a dinner somewhere, go into a room and had a real long meeting about... These guys are media companies. If they say no means no with these guys.
Yeah, things move on, but the structure hasn't. So it's got to be looked at properly.
If the players say we're going to strike and they come together and they do it, what is the impact on the powers that be?
Well...
How do they react today?
It'd be a bad day for football. Right?
And
it'd be a bad day for football.
It's so complex, though. Where
it's
do you
complex
strike?
as to who strikes.
Do you strike this weekend's Premier League?
If Premier
games?
League striked and nobody else did, the rest of the leagues in Europe would be happy as Larry, right? I mean, we're not going to forget what we're involved in here. We're involved in a league with the best football in the world. So the rest of the world's looking at us to, screw up.
Listen, thanks, Peter. Thanks, Steve. It's nice to have you back, man. Nice to see you around the round table discussing all things football. We'll be back on this later on this week with a big one, by the way. We've got a massive interview dropping this week. Steve's going to stick around. I'm going to give a sneak preview so he can talk to me about it. So
Are you going to tell me after, when you're off air?
Yeah, you can watch it. No, I'll tell you after. So yeah, thanks again, guys, and we'll see you soon. Thank you guys for listening to this episode of Real Presents. Hope you've enjoyed the show. We'll be here every Monday throughout the season, so tell your mates and all get involved, man. If you've got a point you think we should be discussing or want to put us on the spot with a question you want answering, get in touch using the fans first at rioferdinandpresents.com email address or use hashtag RFP on social. Make sure you leave us a review and follow this Rio Ferdinand Presents feed and you'll never miss an episode. See ya on the next one.